Hey guys, welcome back for another video. Alright, so in the last video, if you saw that one, you know that I got done with the majority of the demo in the house. I was planning to actually try to get started on some framing, but I need to wait for my heating and cooling contractor to get in here because we're thinking about changing the way that we've got air going to the second floor of this house, and so I don't want to do any framing until I know exactly what we might need for chases and stuff to get air moving upstairs. So I'm going to take a break from up there. It's going to be a couple days before he can get here, and I'm going to do some other stuff. One of the things that I decided to do was to go ahead and get this garage door knocked out. This door over here on this side actually is in halfway a decent condition. I actually had the spring replaced, so it goes up and down fine now and looks okay. This one over here is it's all beat up and bent, and it's got more issues. So I'm gonna replace that, and I actually intended to have the garage door company replace that for me, but just for a very basic, simple, uninsulated door, they're telling me 15 weeks order time, which I'm not going to wait that long. So I went ahead and just picked one up. It's going to be way cheaper. It'll cost me half as much to do it myself anyway, so that's fine. It's just a little bit more time. So I went ahead and picked up a door from Menards. It's an Ideal door. It is actually an insulated door with the whole kit and the torsion spring system. So I tell you what, it's been a long time since I've done a garage door. For years, I just have contractors do it for me, and I bet it's been it's probably been 15 years since I've installed a garage door. So I'll have to read the instructions to remember how to do this. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get this old one knocked down, get it out of the way. I don't know how far I'll get today. I may have to come back and actually do the installation tomorrow, but for now, I'm at least going to get the old door taken down so we can move forward. Alright, so unfortunately this garage door has to go back. I should have showed you guys before I got this all wrapped up, but you can probably kind of see there. It is, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but it's bent. It got smashed into, actually both ends are bent like that. And it's not really bad, but it's bad enough that these things kind of finger groove together. And I know I'm just gonna fight that, plus it's not right. So hate to take it back, but I'm going to need to. Hopefully they still have one so I can get a replacement for it. Alright, so I was able to get a replacement door. Luckily they had one more in stock, and this one, so it's these little fingers basically that were kind of smashed up on the other door and actually all the way into the face of the door too. So this one's in good shape. So let's see if we can figure out how to get this thing put together. I'm just going to kind of run through the steps here. It's a little bit dark in this garage, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you'll be able to see all right. And I'll take you through step by step. and go through each of the process of putting this together. So when you get a garage door, you get a pile of hardware. This is one bag. There's a few bags of hardware. All your different brackets, all your different hinges, your cable. There's a bunch of hardware. So, you know, it's pretty important that you take your time and follow the instructions pretty closely in the instruction guide. There's 30 pages of instructions on this thing. So make sure you take your time following the instructions. But first thing we're going to do is some of these things come, like these are actually the bottom brackets that go on the bottom of the door here, and they come, they're a stamping, so you just have to break those apart, and I'll take a pliers and snap this little tab off. Alright, so first step is to get these hooked onto the door, and if you look at the bracket, try to get you on a better angle here so you can see this. But on the bracket, there's some little hooks in here, basically, and these go in these notches in the door. So you slide those into the hole, and then pull up on it, and that locks it in position. And for a lot of these brackets and the hinges, we're using these 5/8. They're number 14 by 5/8 is what they say. So these doors are pre-drilled. Careful if you're using an impact that you don't over tighten them so you don't strip it out. So I got that side, I'll go ahead and do the other side. Alright, so next step is going to be to install the hinges on the top of the door. And so this is an ideal door for Menards, and everyone's going to probably be a little bit different, but these hinges are all numbered, and the instructions say basically take the hinge number 1, which is what I've got here on all of these. So same thing, we're going to take those with more of these machine screws, and we're just going to stick these on the top of the panel. One thing I forgot to mention is before you install the door, you want to make sure you've got door stops in place. Typically it'll be the kind of vinyl stop. It's got the rubber weather stripping on it. In this case, this garage is all going to get sided, so this metal is going to get ripped off, and so I'm just leaving these wood stops on here, and that'll be great for getting the door installed. But if you don't have some kind of a stop, make sure you get that installed before you proceed to setting the door. The next step is to actually set this first panel in place, and I'm going to have a couple things on hand. I've got some shims. It's important to make sure we get this first panel sitting level. If it's not level, your track and everything's going to want to go off, and you'll be messed up at the top. So first panel needs to be level. I've got a 4-foot level here, and I've also got some 3-inch screws, so we can use these screws to hold the door up against the actual door stop. So let's set it in place and see how it looks for level. So I'm just going to center this in the opening here so it's kind of even on the stop on both sides. Let it sit there with its own weight. So I can see that this left side over here needs to come up. So I'm just going to stick a couple of shims in here. And take your time with the step. Make sure you really nail your level. All right, that right there looks good. So I'm just going to take a couple of these long screws, put them in at an angle here. And that just kind of pins the door against the door frame. There, now it won't go anywhere. All right, now the instructions say to go ahead and attach the cable now. So these will be attached to those first bottom brackets that I installed. And this, of course, is the cable that will run up and attach to the spring when we're done. All right, now moving on to the second panel. The first panel is the one, obviously, it's got the weather stripping that goes along the bottom. The rest of the panels, I don't think really make any difference. They're all the same. So we're going to go ahead and put our hinges on the top of this one. Again, this is where it's important to check your instructions. So the instructions on this particular door say to use the number 2 hinges on the outside, and then on this center one, we're using a number 1 hinge again. So same sheet metal screws that we used before. And we're going to go ahead and set it in the hole. I've got another set of the 3-inch screws. I'm going to use those to pin it in place just like I did the first one. Now we'll take our sheet metal screws and get the hinges that we originally applied to the first door. We'll get those attached to, or the first panel, we'll get those attached to the second panel now. So next step is we're going to attach these roller brackets. So these are going to accept the rollers that go in the track. And in the instructions, it says to put them 3 1/4 inches down, which aligns them with this bottom hole here. And then there are 2 small holes on the bottom. And we're using those same machine screws that we're using before. So now for this strut, basically what this strut does is strengthen the top of the door, so when you put a garage door opener on it, it just provides, you know, structural integrity basically to the top of the door. And we're going to use, in this kit, there's a separate bag, and these are basically self-tapping screws. You don't have holes provided in the door from the factory, so we're just going to take 4 of these, and either a drill or an impact driver, either one. Impact driver's my choice, but looks like we're going to line this thing up. Looks to me like in the picture, they're not real clear, but it looks like they're bringing it down and basically touching the top of this roller bracket. All right, so it looks like I got ahead of myself a little bit on this top section. I've got to put the door opener bracket under that hinge. So this gets slid under the strut, behind that hinge. And I'll reinstall these. And then on the top there, we use a self-tapper. All right, now it's time to install the rollers. Top roller bracket's obvious on these, on your middle two actually. You can go in the position closer to the door or the position further away from the door, and I think that actually is supposed to go in the position further away from the door. So just run through, stick these all in, including the bottom panel. All right, now I'm moving on to the track hardware, and I've already put together the left side over here. And you know, this is another one of those cases, just make sure that you pay close attention to your instructions. There's a special set of nuts and bolts that are used to attach the track components together. What this one wants me to do is take the top holes in the track, and they go so that the nut goes to the outside, the head of the bolt goes to the inside. So it goes in the top holes of the track and then the bottom holes of this flag bracket. And I'm just gonna kind of eyeball this to get it aligned as straight as I can. And go ahead and tighten those down. So the next step is these, I don't know what you call them, track brackets. They're kind of a standoff bracket. And they go down the center section here where it's slotted, and it looks like they basically go through the slot of the track and then also through the slot of the bracket itself. So we've got kind of maximum flexibility here, and these are just finger tight at this point until we get it up on the wall. Okay guys, so I got the track installed on the wall, and this is just not trying to do this by myself and film at the same time didn't work out very well. So I'll just show you what I did basically. But basically I've got the track up a 1/2 inch off the ground. I just put a couple shims off of there, and the instructions say to hold the track approximately 1/2 inch away from the door. So I just got a 1/2 inch board here that I use as a spacer. And you need to mark your 2 brackets here, and then also your top, what they call a flag bracket up there. There's 3 lag screws that go in there. So I had to get everything finagled, make sure it was a 1/2 inch away from the door, mark my locations, drilled with a 3/16 drill bit, and then I came back with my lag screws and got that legged into the door. So sorry I couldn't get that on film, it's just too much to do by myself. And then I came back and I tightened up the nuts on the track hardware that I'd done previously. So that's where we're at. Time to do the top sections of track. Okay, so now it's time to install the horizontal track. And I've done this one on this side. I'm not sure how easy this will be to show on camera. I'm going to do the best that I can. So it's kind of dark over here. You can see that I'm attaching, what I'm going to be doing is attaching to this flag bracket, they call it here, which is basically the top of your vertical track. So to that, you're going to attach your horizontal track, the curve section. And then up here on the top of your flag bracket up there, you're going to connect that piece of angle iron. And I've already installed this piece of angle on the curve section of the track. Pretty straightforward, just a couple of bolts to do that. And then in order to get this I guess there's a couple ways you can do this. On the instructions, they talk about temporarily supporting the horizontal track by hanging by a rope, but I took a ladder and knocked a couple of blocks of styrofoam out of the packaging. That's really close to the height that I need. So I'll just use that to support it as I get everything bolted into place. So finagle your track around your top wheel. I'm just going to very lightly put a couple of bolts in here so it kind of stays where it's supposed to be. All right, now get my temporary blocks. Get the track set up on the temporary blocks, roughly just kind of square off the garage door. And I'm coming back up to my flag bracket. And I've got a 3-inch bolt that runs through here. 3/8 I meant, not 3-inch, 3/8. Okay, so that now is at least sitting where it won't tip. Let's snug these up just a little bit more. Before I tighten those all the way, I'm going to come back to this side over here. And hopefully be able to reuse the bracket that was in here before, since this did have a garage door in here before. So just kind of finagle until you find a spot. And I'm actually going to, I need just a little more height. So I'm going to stick another block up here until I get the bracket over here on the door side, till the track is, till the two sections of the track are sitting kind of square to each other. Okay, so I've got a hole that's there, but this is a 3/8 bolt that goes in here, so I just need to drill out my hanging bracket. Because the bracket just has some small holes. And the hardware kit has just a regular 3/8 bolt that goes through here. And now it's actually supported. So now I'll just go back and tighten up the hardware up here on the track side that I just snugged up before. And this track will be officially hanging. So the last step here with these, just to make sure that the horizontals are installed correctly, is I'm going to check the square, and in order to do that I'm going to measure I'll come from this side. I'm going to measure from that end of the track to a consistent spot on the garage door. I'm just going to come to this bracket here, and I'm at 146 1/4, and then I'll do the same thing from this side. 146 1/4. They're within like 1/8 of an inch, actually. So good enough. If those weren't square, you know, just have to bend your brackets one way or another. You want your garage door obviously to go straight up and down, so just tweak those back and forth, whatever you need to get that square. Before I move on to the spring, I want to adjust this top panel. So if you come out here, you can see how everything's pretty well flush to the stops, and then you get this top panel and you can see how there's a gap. It's actually tipped back. And I've seen this lots of times on just existing garage doors too. So all we have to do to fix that is this top roller assembly. We just loosen up these bolts here. And once that's loose, then you can just slide the door back, because this thing is on a slide. So get the door kind of pressed back so that it's tight against the jamb, and then just retighten these and you'll be good to go. Okay, it's time to get this spring installed. So the first step is to install the spring brackets on either side. Take your hardware back off here that you put on before to this horizontal angle, run that through the bracket, and then there's another bolt that you put on the top there. So then I'm just going to come in and drill 3/16 inch hole, top and bottom, like so. And then once I pre-drill those, then I'll follow up with some lag screws like that, and then that bracket will be firmly attached to the framing. So the next step is I've got to basically build this torsion tube. So this is the tube that spring mounts on, and so you've got two pipes here, two chunks of round tubing, and then you've got this adapter. So that goes on there, and then I've got to drill a hole like so, and then run a 5/8. Well, that didn't work. I've got some of these self-tappers left over. I'm going to try these. Much better. All right, I'll do this. I'll do the same thing for the other tube, and then we'll have an assembled torsion tube. All right, so we're going to assemble this torsion tube. And I'm just going to follow their instructions pretty closely here. All right, so we need to attach the spring to the winding unit. This is the winding unit, and looks like this is just going to clip in here. All right. It says now with a partner, lift this up into the cradle of the torsion spring bracket. This would be a little bit easier with a partner, but I don't have one. All right, just a quick run through what I got going on here. So basically this winding mechanism, there's a slot in it and it fits into this retainer here. The drum that the cable is going to wrap around fits sort of inside that bracket. This side over here, there's kind of a bushing thing that slides inside of there. Same basic setup. And then the instructions say to measure. Look at your spring. This one says 32. You're supposed to measure and make sure that you've got your coils are 32 inches, and then you tighten down these two set screws there. So that's what I've done so far. All right, next up we're going to take the cable, run it behind the rollers. It's going to come up here behind the drum. Oh, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but so this cable comes up the back here, and then there is a slot in that drum that the end of that cable goes through. So now what I'm going to do is tighten it by hand. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do this on camera, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this by hand, and then right here there's a set screw that takes a 3/16 Allen key, and what that's going to do is get this drum locked onto this torsion tube. All right, I've got that set screw tightened up. Now what I'm going to do, they provide a little 1/4-inch hex key that goes into this winder, and I'm just going to put a couple of turns on here just to put a little tension on that. Just to tension up that spring, that cable slightly. So I put this carriage bolt in a little bit early, but that's okay. I just pop this nut loose. And this rubber tube retainer goes on there. And I think its purpose is just to make sure that this this whole torsion tube assembly doesn't somehow pop up out of the frame and cause havoc. So I've got 2 of these. I've got one for this side, and I'll go do the left side too. All right, the time has come to tension up this spring. And it says for a 7-foot door, which is what this is, to do 11 1/4 winds. So there's a stripe on here, and I'm just going to be counting the number of times that that stripe comes around, and we'll get to 11 1/4. Well, right as I hit about 11, the door actually moved up a little bit. So we're I think that's actually a little too much spring tension. I think the last thing I have to do is tighten the other set screws on these drums. So if you lift the garage door up a little bit, you can get access. I think there's, I don't know, let me see how many there are. Yeah, there's 2 on each drum, so that side's already tight. So get those tightened up, and I think we're done. Garage doors installed, finally. Not really a hard job, but it's a time-consuming job, especially by yourself. But anyway, we got 2 functioning doors now, which is nice. If I throw a lock set on this walk-in door over here, I'll be able to get this secured so I can store stuff out here, which is kind of the reason I wanted to get this thing installed. Next step will be garage door opener, but I don't even have power going to this garage yet. I need to get a wire run out here so I can get openers and a light and a couple outlets. But I'm not going to worry about that for right now. So next step, I think possibly tomorrow, my HVAC contractor might be here, and we're going to be doing some work in the house, planning to get air conditioning installed. And I actually think we're going to change the way that we're sending supply air from the basement up to the 2nd story of the house. So if you're interested in seeing what's going to happen there, a little bit of revision to the way the HVAC system works, make sure you tune in for the next video. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in the next one.